So good afternoon to all of you here at the audience with us and also to the ones that are online. We are going to start by saying and remind you that for all of you that are here, we are having our dinner time at 8 o'clock Lisbon time at Shushu, which is a restaurant just close by. So I think we are going to go all together. And after this announcement they asked me to make, we are going to pass on to our panel. So our subject of today's reflection is going to be about Eastern Europe at the center again, which is a huge question and very interesting one. We'll have a couple of presentations, and we are going to start, just to follow up here the schedule and the preview, with the panelists online. So I would like to thank you all once again for being here, your presence, and to share with us your research work and your reflections. And I hope that we all have a great panel session. Of course, we are going to have first the communications and afterwards a period of Q&A. So first of all, I would like to give the floor to, and I feel sorry, I'm so sorry if I cannot spell it right, but I'm going to try. Ainur Almukhambetova, which is going to bring us the communications about exploring student international mobility in Kazakhstan in the context of the Russian-Ukraine war. Hi, can
Hello.
you hear us? Yes.
Yes, I can hear you. So can you hear me?
We are not listening very well. It's a bit, the sound not so loud. So,
okay.
So the floor is yours. And thank you so much once again. And feel free to share with us your presentation.
Okay. So let me share the screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can see the screen share, but the sound is still a bit low.
Okay, I will try to speak louder.
Perhaps you can
I will try to. Can you hear me now?
It's a bit better. It's a bit louder. Yeah.
Yeah, I will try to speak louder. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ainur Almukhambetova. I'm going to present the study on students' international mobility in Kazakhstan in the context of Russian-Ukraine war. Let me start with presenting some relevant information about Kazakhstan. So Kazakhstan is actually ninth biggest country in the world. Its territory is bigger than the territory of Western Europe. It has a long border with Russia in North and West Kazakhstan, and the length of the border is more than 7,000 kilometers. The population is around 18.5 million people, including 130 nationalities and over 100 ethnic groups. So around 63% of population are Kazakhs, 23% are Russians, and the rest include Uzbeks, Ukrainians, Tatars, Germans, Uyghurs, Koreans, and others. So coming back to the topic of international student mobility, within the global scholarly inquiry on internationalization of higher education, studies focusing on international student mobility are attracting greater scholarly attention during the last decade. This is mainly because the global number of international students has climbed from 2 million students in year 2000 up to 6.1 million students in 2019. So although the pandemic has somehow disrupted this trend, it is still predicted that more and more students will seek higher education opportunities outside their home countries in the following years. So therefore, understanding the factors behind the students' decision to pursue international mobility have important implications for higher education institutions, both in home and receiving countries, for immigration policy, and also for workforce development. Are you hearing me? Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Actually, I didn't want to interrupt your reflection, but I'm going to ask you, perhaps you can speak a little louder because it's not clear here
Okay, I
to
will
follow
try.
you. And just a quick reminding that we are going to give you 20 minutes for your presentation. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so while these increasing numbers of students that I mentioned previously kind of reflect the aspirations of students to pursue education outside their home countries, they are still unable to uncover all the nature of external factors that influence the students' mobility decisions. Like, for instance, in the 21st century, there were three major events that influence the patterns of students' mobility, and these are the 9/11 terrorist attacks, the global financial recession, the slowdown of Chinese economy, and also UK referendum to leave European Union. And currently, the world is facing a new set of global political and economic challenges that might have a significant impact on international students' mobility trends. Okay, coming back to Kazakhstan. Surprisingly, Kazakhstan is one of the top sending countries in the world. Like in 2017, it occupied the 7th place in the world by the number of national students studying abroad. In the previous academic year, the number of international students pursuing education outside Kazakhstan was again high, around 90,000 students, which actually equals the student population of 10 big regional universities. And out of this number, around 70,000 students, more than 80%, studied in Russia. So actually, the whole Central Asian region is a big source region for Russian higher education institutions, except for Kyrgyzstan. Russia is successfully recruiting international students from former Soviet states to strengthen its soft power and also to improve the country's economy. As it was estimated previously, by 2025, the income from foreign enrollments in the Russian economy will constitute around 6.5 billion. Russia's appeal as a core country stems from its size, economic prosperity in the region, linguistic and geographic proximity, and also accommodating cultural environment. Also, Russia stands out as a provider of top quality higher education in the region because many, as I remember, 7 Russian technical universities were represented in international rankings such as Times Higher Education. So the purpose of the study is to understand how whether and how the Russia-Ukraine war conflict has influenced the students' mobility trends since the start of the conflict. So given the fact the majority of students from Kazakhstan used to choose Russian universities before the war, it is important to understand what factors determine students' decisions in current reality. So the following research questions were posed. How do the students' intentions to pursue international mobility change due to the current geopolitical realities? And which factors determine the students' decisions in the context of Russia-Ukraine war? The study was guided by a push-pull model, which is based on list theory of human migration. According to this theory, there are 2 types of factors that influence students' decisions to pursue international mobility. So these are push factors and pull factors. Traditionally, the push factors are associated with domestic countries, while the pull factors are associated with destination countries. The study employed the qualitative methodology to achieve its purpose. So we conducted semi-structured interviews with 30 school graduates from 6 Kazakhstani regions bordering Russia. We interviewed actually the students who graduated from school in 2020 2022, before the war started, and also who graduated this year after the war started. The participants for the study were recruited via a purposeful maximal variation sampling procedure, and they all varied in such characteristics such as gender, region, type of the school, and their ethnicity. So let's go to the findings. It was identified in our study that more than 80% of the students planned to pursue higher education in Russia before the conflict changed their plans. This was especially evident from the responses of the students who graduated before the war and were making the enrollment decision in the context of quick pace of geopolitical events. 7 participants adjusted their plans and decided to stay in Kazakhstan. Several students reported they were still planning to pursue education in Russia. 3 participants mentioned future migration to Russia as one of the main reasons for pursuing higher education in Russia. We have also identified several pull factors on receiving country side, and these were mostly quality of teaching. About a third of participants highlighted that they were attracted by the quality of education abroad and the university's reputation. 3 participants highlighted that if not the war, they would still pursue education in Russia, as they considered technical universities in Russia offer a high quality education in some STEM subjects in particular. The students also mentioned such factors as employment opportunities, especially those who intended to enter IT majors. And they highlighted they see more employment prospects in STEM and IT companies in Russia and other countries. Many students also noted paid internships available for the students in universities. So as one of the highlighted, in Kazakhstani universities, you will not be able to learn practical things until the year 4. Because the internships start only during the last year at university. We have also identified the following factors such as geographic and language proximity and also cultural affinity. It was identified that Russian universities remain a priority for school graduates with limited English language capacity and Kazakh language capacity, but still willing to pursue education outside Kazakhstan. Participants highlighted that the fact that there was no language barrier was an important factor when choosing the destination country. So let me present one of the quotes. There will be no language barrier like in any other foreign country because we speak fluent Russian here. 4 students also reported that they were going to study in Russia only due to the fact it was easy for them to commute from their home cities, which were situated very close to Russian border. We have also identified several push factors on domestic side, like a quality of education. Many interviewed participants mentioned that one of the major factors why the students seek higher education opportunities outside Kazakhstan is a low quality of teaching at Kazakhstani universities. So as one of the participants commented, most students are not happy with the education in Kazakhstan. Not in all of the universities, except the top ones like Nazarbayev University, the quality of education is good. The students also mentioned such factors as poor university infrastructure and low stipend, which does not compensate for the fast growth of inflation in the country. We have been also able to identify several reverse pull and push factors which are associated with the war conflict. Actually, half of the participants stated that they were concerned with the safety in destination country and the risk associated with the situation with the war. So let me present the quote. Many of my friends who were going to apply to universities in Europe changed their decision to the risks due to the risks to their life and other subsequent circumstances. They also gave up the ideas of applying to Russian universities and chose safer destinations. It seems that students were also concerned with growing cost of living and prices. Like, for instance, two students mentioned that they have decided not to apply to universities in Poland as the cost of living in Europe has grown due to Russia-Ukraine war. The students also mentioned the cut of scholarships for the from former post-Soviet countries as one of the factors. So as they say, the European universities started to prioritize Ukrainian students, and this number of scholarships, particularly for the students from post-Soviet countries, has decreased. And this has also influenced their decision where to apply. We also have noticed several reverse pull factors associated with Russian universities in particular, and these are perceived devaluation of diplomas and economic decline. So the concerns about the value of diplomas from Russian universities were named by the participants as strong counter-influence in the process of making decision. Actually, 7 participants mentioned this. Other factors which were mentioned are the economic recession, devaluation of the currency, economic sanctions, blocking of social networking sites. The fact that many internationally recognized STEM and IT companies had left Russia was also an additional reverse factor. And it was interesting to know that the students were not only anxious about their future employment and internships in these countries, but also fewer learning opportunities, such as absence of access to licensed IT software, AI learning tools, shortage of STEM equipment, which is usually exported to Russia, and also related challenges. The students also mentioned the increased social and economic tension associated with making decision to pursue education in Russian universities. Those students who were currently studying in Russian universities noted the changes in the mentality of citizens, the frequent emergence of conflicts of opinion in the society, and also increased xenophobia associated with the war. Let me again voice one of the votes. It is possible that the percentage of students entering Russian universities will decrease. First, it is difficult psychologically, economically also. The situation is not stable, and not everyone is able to afford child's education in Moscow, where the situation is so unstable. There is a high likelihood of civil war riots. Again, it is difficult for parents to send their child to the country involved in military conflict and in unstable situation in general. We have also noticed the emergence of additional push and pull factors, both on both sides. Like, for instance, we have noticed that the parents' influence on students' decisions has increased in the situation with military conflict. Only 7 graduates out of 30 said that they were independent in their decisions. And this factor was especially prominent for the students who were the only or late children in the family or of female gender. As one student mentioned, I was only thinking about entering the university, but my parents were thinking differently. When I was about to buy the tickets to Hungary, my parents told me, it's war everywhere, where are you going? I didn't even think about the war, but they did, and it was so stressful for them. Another interesting quote. The parents didn't want to send the student outside Kazakhstan because he was a late child, and they didn't want to let him go to Europe and also to America because they have strained relations with Russia. On domestic side, we have identified the following factor as adaptability of domestic higher education institutions. We noticed that there were many recent developments in Kazakhstani universities who were trying to pull the students who were in uncertain situation due to the war conflict and who previously used to study in Russia. So several initiatives were implemented, like the number of scholarships for STEM specialties has increased up to 60%. And there was a launch of dual degree programs with some Western reputable universities. And this was again done in the strive to retain the talented students who usually used to go outside Kazakhstan. However, we also noted that the students were able to transfer from Russian universities due to restrictive transfer policies in local universities.
Ainur, I didn't want to interrupt you. Just a quick reminder that you have still 5 minutes, okay?
Okay. So let me jump to discussion and conclusions. We have identified that actually in the situation with a military conflict, the students were put and pushed to make decisions under the influence of different factors, which were located both on the receiving and domestic sides. Actually, the students' decisions were highly prone to geopolitical turbulence. We also identified the situation with Russia-Ukraine military conflict has modified the traditional mix of pull and push influences. And the decisions of whether to pursue international mobility were primarily driven by safety, financial, economic, and social tension concerns. It was also identified that Russia is no longer the priority for students from Kazakhstan, but it is still seen as an attractive destination, especially for ethnic Russians, those who initially planned to migrate to Russia. We have also noticed, and this is like an implication for higher education institutions, that higher education institutions which are interested in understanding students' mobility decisions in times of conflict should develop more effective university recruitment and admission policies, and also adjust their regulation to address the needs of transfer students in changing situations. And also in the competition for international talent, especially for STEM talent, the universities should provide more scholarship for the students from affected regions. It's also unclear what is the potential impact of shifting mobility patterns on the local Kazakhstani higher education sector in terms of challenges or opportunities to attract international and Kazakhstani students in the new context of war and future post-war in the region. So more research is needed. Thank you very much for your attention. So let me start the demonstration.
Thank you, Ainur. Once again, what a wonderful way to start this session with this very interesting topic, if I might say, international student mobility, that we can, of course, discuss and debate in the Q&A parts, but it's a very, very interesting topic regarding the theory of migration that you use. I will make a question afterwards about that. Thank you so much. So now we are going to give the floor to Pedro Cunha de Silva. Pedro, do you?
Yes, can you hear me?
Is it okay, the sound?
Yes, I can hear you, that's right.
It's still a bit not so loud. Perhaps we can like make something with the sound here. Anyway, with no further ado, I'm going to say that Pedro Cunha da Silva is going to bring us a research and a paper about multi-track EU enlargement in the first year of war, the Bosnia and Georgian cases. So thank you so much once again. And Pedro, the floor is yours. If you have any PowerPoint presentation to share with us, please feel free to share it. And just a quick reminder that we will have 20 minutes to your presentations. Thank you so much.
Can you see the presentation? Can you see the presentation?
It's not on the full screen yet, but
All right.
yeah, it's better now. And now we need the presentation.
Okay.
It's share, but it's not on the full screen yet.
Oh, okay.
Perhaps you can click on the usual icon to put it in the mode of presentation mode. Yes, I guess. Once again, perhaps.
Is it better now?
Well, we can see it, but it's not on the full screen yet.
Okay.
In the right corner, yes, it's already.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Greetings to all. I think that the title is relatively self-explanatory. I sought to analyze both Bosnia and Georgia's case for enlargement during the first year of the war, or the war escalation since February 2022. And I chose both these countries since they were not yet candidates for accession to the EU, but still yet potential candidates.
Pedro, sorry to interrupt you, but
yes.
we have some technical problems with the sound. Do you have iPhone that you can phones that you can use?
Yes, I'm wearing.
Okay, not so close. It was actually a bit close, so it was doing a kind of noise. So
right.
Sorry to ask you to do like that.
Is it better?
Thank you.
Okay. Both these countries were potential candidates at the start of the war escalation, and I saw when I started writing this paper in August 2022, I noticed a couple of key developments and a bit of a parallel between these countries, both in the domestic politics and how they were sort of perceived by the European Union. Despite recent developments, my main focus was how the EU views both these countries' processes for accession, and it is of course a bit controversial to present an objective EU view. So I sought a number of high-level statements and documents, namely the yearly assessments that the EU publishes for the 6 Western Balkan states and Turkey. And,
Pedro, sorry,
yes.
I'm so sorry once again. I need to interrupt you because the sound here, it's really, really hard to follow your reflection. And I don't know if you noticed, but the PowerPoint wasn't moving on forward, so it stopped.
No, I wasn't moving the PowerPoint.
Oh, okay. So, but anyway, the sound, I don't know. It's really. I'm going just to pass you quickly to our technical support, Miguel, here to talk to you.
Okay.
Sorry, Pedro. Try to change the earphones. Try to take off yours. See if your computer has a better mic than the earphones, because your earphones has a metallic sound. Okay, or it's too closed, or the quality of them is not the best.
Okay.
Are you using a laptop or a desktop?
I'm using a laptop with phones.
If you're using a laptop, try to use the laptop microphone. If you unplug your earphones, he automatically make the changes.
All right.
Okay, try to say something. It's even worse. It's even worse. Try it again. Or if you have any different earphones to try.
Can you hear me now?
We hear, but with the same sound of the initial.
Oh, okay. I'll try to stick a bit closer to the laptop in that case. Maybe does it make any difference right now?
Stand too much because we still hearing the metallic sound. Okay. Don't you have any other earphones near you?
No, I only have the ones I was using previously.
Okay.
Maybe I'll try to speak a bit louder. Do you have any suggestions?
The sound that you are using, continue with the earphones. Is better with the earphones than without them. So let's continue this way. Do you have your cell phone with you, near you? Pedro?
Yes.
Pedro, if you have your smartphone near you and you can enter in Zoom meeting with your cell phone can serve as a microphone.
Okay, I'll see what I can do with that option. Maybe then you can have.
No, you don't go out of the desk, the laptop. Okay, you continue with the laptop. But if you want to put your cell phone in Zoom, if you talk, the Zoom will hear the cell phone, and the presentation is still going in the class.
Let's see. I'll try. This might take a few minutes, so if you
Pedro, maybe while you're entering in Zoom in your cell phone, we pass for the next person. Then after them, you take place again. Okay.
Yes, of course, no problem.
Okay, so only you only need to stop sharing, and we're going to continue.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I would like to know, good afternoon. I would like to know if my sound is loud and clear enough. Okay. Good afternoon again. I'm Paulo Zagalo, as been already introduced. I'm a PhD student at the Military University Institute on Military Sciences and focusing on the CSDP, on European Studies. And I have to give my warmest regard to Professor Sónia Sénica and my fellow colleagues at this panel. This is part of a research project that I'm undergoing, and I'm asking you to give me, if needed, if found, any kind of advices in order to improve my paper and to give it in the better format for printing review. My 20 minutes are going through these 7 points that are here at the agenda. Because I want to be tied to the time, my next slide gives us already the info that probably we are under. We are on a boiling water. And this is because we are in a globalized world and a networked one that contagious all from actions, inactions, or misactions from others, from the international scene, that is characterized by uncertainty, unpredictability, and competition, other than other interests, such those that are now happening in Ukraine. And probably we are facing now a bigger challenge, because after the end of the Cold War, Europeans started to have this feeling of perpetual peace, the Kantian peace, and decided not to invest in security and defense, not being per se a militarist point of view, probably because security is a permanent concern of organizations and states, and because the European Union promotes peace and well-being of its members to achieve the so-called sustained development. But once again, we have to pay attention to those that went before us and wrote papers that needed to be read. Let me go to the last line. Tribal wars and ethnic conflicts will take place within civilizations. Probably this will drive our attention. And Mr. Samuel Huntington is telling us that we should pay attention to the world, and coming to the field of developing area in which I am, that is Bosnia-Herzegovina. Let me give you this hint. Bosnia-Herzegovina, as we know it, was defined after the Dayton Agreement in 1995. And from then to now, the compliance of this agreement has not been as the world and the letter of the agreement was expecting. And so sometimes with resistance, sometimes with presence of the international community, Bosnia authorities and entities are going along with the agreement. Although recently, and we have to pay attention to it, some clear signs indicates that we have the possibility of secession from one of the two entities, the Republika Srpska. The other one is the Federation of Bosnia-Croat, that is managing the country, so to say. And these signs, if further developed, will give us the possibility to jeopardize the compliance with Dayton, creating like that a crisis and conditions that might evolve to a conflict in Europe under the EU umbrella. Once again, and in a graphic way, we have three ethnic groups: Catholic, Muslim, and Orthodox, and two different entities: the Republika Srpska, the darker color, the dark brown color over there, and the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And so, if the secession, if the compliance of Dayton ends now, one question arises and needs to be answered. How can the EU influence Bosnia-Herzegovina in maintaining a safe, secure, and stable environment? To answer the question, we are going through it, but we are anticipating the answer. And so my hypothesis is, and so the bottom line up front, the bluff, is using the integrated approach. Why? Using diplomatic and political instruments or options, an economic one, because Bosnia, as we'll see, depends on it, and the military one, because we need to create the conditions for the country be run by itself. But to be there, we need to go to a paramount importance on our perspective definition. Although this is a polysemic concept, let me call you for two different definitions. Crisis is a situation between peace and war, and under the European Union external action, crisis is a situation of sudden and serious deterioration that might have impact on the security interest of the EU or the security of the EU personnel and citizens. And so, further on, in 2016, it was defined and approved the European Union Global Strategy, defining levels of ambition, actions to be performed, and results to be obtained. The major part of it is that, and Ms. Mogherini told us that European Union should speak with one face and win with one voice, trying to get all the partners on track in compliance with all those accepted aspects. And also because, as it is written on green, the weaknesses of my neighbors and partners are my own weaknesses. Going through it, we are approaching that we need to combine conflict prevention, mediation, and peace building in an integrated approach to conflict and crisis through a coherent use of all policies at the EU's disposal. But we need to pay attention to Bosnia as it is now and from where it comes. The Balkan Wars at the beginning of the 20th century were two different wars. One between the Balkan League, so it was a league between Serbia, Greece, Romania, Bulgaria, and trying to fight the Ottoman Empire. And after, in the end of the war, they quarreled to get control of Bulgaria and access to the sea. The problem is that the Asian Sea was geopolitical interest of Serbia, because it was the way to reach the sea and the warm waters towards the Mediterranean. But this point was not given to Serbia, and the war ended with dispute and giving situation to start the second one. And the second Balkan War broke after Serbia, Greece, and Romania quarreling over Bulgaria again, trying to divide Macedonia. Why? Because they want to go through Montenegro to the sea. The problem is that even with the presence of Russia to mediate the conflict, Serbia lost on their interest. And so the Adriatic Sea wasn't at their disposal. And so the world, presuming that this situation was ending, the world witnessed the tensions in the Balkans that helped to spark World War I. Going on further, and the Kingdom of Yugoslavia was the outcome of reuniting all those republics that we were mentioning before. In 1929, the Parliament of the Kingdom of Serbia decided to reestablish the Great Serbia, the Greater Serbia. And although the Kingdom of Serbia the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, sorry, that means land of South Slaves, it was absolute power. Two different groups, nationalist groups, broke up on fights. The Ustaša, that were Croatians, and the Chetniks, that were the Orthodox. Though the Ustaša were Christians and pro-fascists, and the Serbs, the Chetniks, were Orthodox and pro-Russians. Those two groups were fighting among them until the moment in which a single and common enemy appeared, the Second World War, and the Axis is trying to invade the Yugoslavia. And then a person came to create a movement, a communist partisans movement, trying to grab those two groups, Ustaša and Chetniks, and so together they could fight and expelled the enemy, the common enemy. And so they managed to do it, and the World War was able to diminish the fractions between the Croats and the Serbs, so Utaša and Chetniks, and becoming alliance, they decided to put aside the war, although with the cost of lives on 1 million Yugoslavs. Then Tito's decided to rule, and it was accepted as such, the Yugoslavia. And the Yugoslavia, under his concept, was run by a concept of brotherhood and unicity. But once again, reducing probably to zero, that was difficult, the nationalisms, knowing that only through a common element would be able to have a great country. And so, although being close to the communist ideas, he decided not to go with Stalin, and so he created with other countries like India or South Africa non-alignment movement. So this non-aligned state, it was up to 150 states, and those were trying to keep themselves in between the two major powers. But the problem is that as human, Tito passed away, and passed away in 1980. From 1980 until the early 90s or late 80s, the region, the country was trying to be governed by coalitions and a kind of agreements that were able to manage the country working as such. But in the end, the two wealthiest republics, Croatia and Slovenia, decided to hold elections, and so they decided to abandon the idea of a unified Yugoslavia. And so in 91, Slovenia and Croatia held, and later Yugoslav Federal Republic of Macedonia, decided to declare the independence. And the civil war was about to begin. Why? Because the Serbians, the Bosnian Serbians, supported by Belgrade, weren't in a will to let the country split apart. And actually, the world witnessed a huge civil war from 92 to 95. We can recall those images. And between Croats, Bosnian Serbs, and Bosniaks, the three major entities, they committed all types of atrocities. And being the Bosnian from Belgrade started to arm the Bosnian Serbs. Then the elections were held on Bosnia-Herzegovina in order to declare also the independence, and the three factions decided to fight between them to have the supreme power. I was telling you that from 92 to 95, the civil war devastated the country, but several attempts to solve the problems, to have peace over there, was conducted. 92, it was the Carrington-Cutileiro Plan. 92, Van Soen Plan. 93, Owen-Stoltenberg Plan. And in 94, the Contact Group Plan. But they failed. Failed because the Serbs were against, the Republic Srpska were against. Sometimes because some of those that were signing the paper, giving his in principium approval, decided not to go. And then the final process was to go against all the process. And then we have the Dayton Agreement. It was negotiated in Dayton, and so the name, and it was finally signed on the 14th December 95. Those are the entities. Those are the person representing entities under the supervision of Warren Christopher, the American Secretary of State. And so we have Bosnia as we know it, with a composition of two entities, the Republic of the Federation of Croatia and Bosnia, and the Republika Srpska. To implement what was written and agreed on the 95 Dayton's agreement, some forces were put in place by NATO, and then after and from 2004, EU4. And those were the instruments from the international community to invite imposing in first place with the I4, and then stabilizing, advising, and inviting, so to say, helping to comply and promoting the support given by the EU4. What are now the main ideas concerning the future? And we have here two different entities. The EU on the far up left corner, and the up right one to the NATO. I do believe that our colleague Pedro will address the situation on the EU membership that was formally applied on the 15th February 2006 by the Bosnia, and with the opposition of the Republika Srpska, and the main intention is to access to the world's principal single market, that is. And again, trying to have financial and development assistance other than the freedom of movement from the citizens. And the NATO support for democratic institutional security and defense, plus the development of the professional armed forces, trying to give the determination to Bosnia to be a sovereign country. But we have the instability factors. First of all, Mr. Schmidt, that is now the United Nations High Representative to Bosnia-Herzegovina, says that there are signs raising the eyebrow to the Republika Srpska, because Mr. Dodik is trying to secession from the Bosnia-Herzegovina. They are trying to withdraw from the three pillars of the state: defense, judicial, and the tax system instruments. And so EU is trying to give them all the instruments to not provide to Mr. Dodik's reasons to step aside of the Bosnia-Herzegovina entity. But once again, the Banja Luka, that is the capital of the Republika Srpska, witnessed demonstrations supporting Dodik's positions, secessing from the Bosnia-Herzegovina, and plus he is saying that he does not follow the decisions of unelected foreigners. Plus, there are other stability and instability factors. The proximity of Mr. Dodik to China and Russia, being the Russian ambassador able to say that if Bosnia can join NATO, Moscow will react as a threat being posed. And so we have to look at the specific aspect, that is Mr. Dodik. Mr. Dodik saying that there is no war. Russia and China support the Republika Srpska. The High Representative does not have valid decisions over the Republika Srpska. He is against the current constitution, that is one annex to the Dayton Agreement. And then he decided to delay the plans to pull their region, Republika Srpska, from national institutions because of the Ukraine invasion. What are so the options that we are announcing after the analysis that we are making and we have been making so far. First, the diplomatic. Why? Because meetings are being conducted under the EU senior entities and institutions with the Bosnia-Herzegovina, both in there and inside the Balkan cities, Western Balkan cities. Then the position and statements. And today we are expecting to study the State of the Union that Miss von der Leyen addressed during the morning. So all the diplomatic and political influences are trying to diffuse the crises that are being there. Another one is that we are listening and we have paid attention to Miss von der Leyen when she says that your future, addressing Bosnia-Herzegovina, your future is Europe, you are part of Europe. And on the 28th October 22, she said specifically that we have to celebrate our proposal to make Bosnia a candidate for EU membership. The economic one, let me call your attention to the far side, the right side of the slide. EU represents 72.5% of the foreign direct investments on the Western Balkans. So the difference is against Russia for 4.6% and China only 0.1%, meaning that from 2014 to 2020, 530 million euros were injected there, and from 2021 to 2027 are expected to be invested 14 billion euros. This is a huge weight on the situation. Plus, the ambassador that is the head of the EU delegation for the youth and the EU special representative to Bosnia said that the EU is the largest investor and the most loyal partner for Bosnia-Herzegovina. The other option is the military one. We have there a force that is manned of 1,100 in theater. They are now conducting support local authorities in maintaining a safe and secure environment, combined and collective training, and all this is due to their presence in the Bosnia-Herzegovina, other than providing the military emergency support. And we can recall last year the floods, the fires, and the catastrophes that they witnessed. In a very short way, let us go through the three different options: economic, diplomatic, and political, the economic, and the military one. Now we are able to answer the question: how can the European Union influence Bosnia-Herzegovina in maintaining a safe and stable environment? Through an integrated approach as defined in the European Union global strategy, using diplomatic, political, comprehensive approach, then the economic one and the military one, all concurrent to the secure and safe environment in Bosnia-Herzegovina. So this concludes my briefing, and I remain available for any question that you will be able to pose me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Paulo, for this wonderful and interesting presentation. So we are going now to see if Pedro is okay with the sound topic.
I had some issues.
Pedro, can you hear me? I
Yes,
cannot see you yet, but
yes, I can. I can hear you. I had some issues trying to log in through my smartphone, and I tried to tweak in a bit of the with the earphones. Is the audio any better?
actually, I think we think it's still the same, but I guess we are going to try to do it anyway. Perhaps perhaps you can talk a bit
louder,
or not so close to the mic.
Okay. Okay, I'll try.
So we will give it another try. Okay, Pedro, thank you so much. Just remind our audience that you are going to bring us the paper about multi-track EU enlargement in the first year of war, the Bosnia and Georgian cases. So the floor is yours once again. Thank you, Pedro.
Thank you. I'll just share my screen. Okay. So from the beginning, my objective was to analyze both Bosnia and Georgia's political realities and motivations for seeking EU membership, and how both countries capitalized on a sudden impetus for the EU's enlargement process, which was triggered outside the EU and outside any of the candidate countries, which was the war escalation since February 2022 between Russia and Ukraine. My primary assumption, I started to write this in August 2022, was that it was difficult to find an objective European Union view on these countries, given that, of course, there are 27 member states, each with their own differing foreign policies. The EU institutions also have some political autonomy of their own. So I tried to find both high-level statements from political leaders within the EU member states, particularly Germany and France, but also leaders within the EU institutions like the President of the European Commission, the European Council, the High Representative for the Union, and also some annual assessments that the EU publishes on each of the 6 Western Balkan states, Turkey, and also from February 2023 onwards, so a full year after the war. Also some analytical reports, which are a bit less in depth, but still just as comprehensive, on Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia. So first, a not so analytical, but more informative timeline I found it useful to include, that illustrates the impetus for the enlargement process. So in record time, 3 post-Soviet states, all European with frozen conflicts before the war escalation, made a formal request for EU candidate status, with Bosnia following in their footsteps, despite already requesting said status in February 2016. In record time, the Commission issued its opinions on the 3 eastern states about 3.5 months later, since the request, compared to the 3.5 years it took for Bosnia to receive its opinion. A similar period, a few years, was also taken for the Western Balkan states, which had requested its status, with Turkey being a bit of an outlier since it presented its request and candidate status many decades before. Now, semantics play a relevant role in these opinions, which are also commission-made and sponsored by every single member state by unanimity. Both Ukraine and Moldova were tasked with 9 steps before accession. Nevertheless, they achieved candidate status. On the other hand, Georgia was tasked with 12 priorities before accession, and it should also report on its advances before getting candidate status, exactly as Bosnia in 2019 with its not 12 but 14 priorities. Now, there is no single document which presents the enlargement process in an objective and simple manner. I chose the word saga, the EU accession saga. It may sound too lyrical and subjective, but it is strangely appropriate given the complexity that the EU made of its enlargement processes since 2004. As for the 6 stages, I will describe each of them briefly. First, an applicant state submits a formal request to the EU Council. Georgia is currently in the first stage. Second, the permanent representatives in Brussels decide by unanimity to request a mandatory opinion from the Commission, which is then approved by the European Parliament by simple majority and seconded by the European Council via unanimity. Third, the now candidate state agrees on a pre-accession strategy with the Commission, which evaluates or screens the candidate considering the so-called Copenhagen criteria, which are political, economic, and legislative. So the capacity to incorporate the legislative conglomerate of the EU, the so-called acquis, or acquis communautaire. Bosnia is currently on the verge of reaching this stage. On the fourth stage, negotiations begin proper, coordinated by the Commission and the European Council, which evaluates the state of play for each of 6 clusters, containing a total of 33 chapters, which regulate every aspect of a country's functioning. This is where Serbia, Montenegro, Turkey, North Macedonia, and Albania currently stand. There was no clear definition of a potential candidate, despite being referenced in a number of documents. The next step is the formal conclusion and closing of all chapters, followed by the preparation of a treaty of accession. And finally, it is granted an acceding country status, which will be upgraded to a proper EU member state at the date provided for the treaty of accession. The definition of potential candidate that you see on the slide is my own. So because there was no, it was not possible to find an objective one via high-level statements and documents published by any of the EU institutions. In this table, you may see every milestone achieved by every candidate and potential candidate. I will not go over every detail in this table, but the dates should present a few relevant aspects. The time relation between the association agreements and the accession request, which in the Western Balkans were closely knit, so in very close dates. The time between the said request and the Commission's opinion is also largely coherent within Turkey and the 6 Western Balkan states, with Bosnia having the largest hiatus, so 3.5 years as previously mentioned, while post-Soviet states took only 3.5 months. The impetus within the enlargement provoked by the war is also made apparent by the amount of milestones which you may see shown in the table within 2022, compared to any other year, with a very large hiatus since 2016 and the beginning of 2022. To focus on Bosnia and Georgia's specific case, as previously mentioned, there are no progress reports, which are the quintessential assessment the EU provides for each candidate state. But the analytical reports use the same structure. Again, they are less in depth, yes, but they use the same structure and are just as comprehensive. I will show at the end of the presentation a table, but Bosnia currently holds the lowest aggregate score targeted Moldova, despite having an average score in the internal market cluster, therefore faring better at the economic criteria than all 3 post-Soviet states and Kosovo. Georgia, on the other hand, is a tier above with Ukraine, while faring even better than Kiev in the internal market and competitiveness and inclusive growth clusters, falling a bit behind Albania, which is a veteran candidate from over a decade. The remaining clusters, however, present a very poor showing for both states. The Commission stated in 2022 that Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia would get their own progress reports in 2023, yet it chose to anticipate this in February 2023 with similar reports, the so-called analytical reports, which might indicate that Brussels also wanted to show its efforts an exact year after the war escalation. Now, since I started writing the paper in August 2022, there was no common metric at the point between all candidates and potential candidates. There were some reports relating to the association agreements between the country and the EU, but the structure was different. There was a few relevant document from a think tank, the Center for European Policy Studies, with its own informal opinions on Ukraine and Moldova, but not on Georgia. They did not include it in the metrics related to every other candidate and potential candidate, and citing the issue of their request as a dubious application. The internal politics of countries, of course, are never stagnant. And this is especially true with Bosnia and Georgia, as specifically with Bosnia, as my colleague previously stated in his presentation. However, when there was an escalation within the ruling elites of both countries, the EU sought to mediate, and the commitments between all involved, while similar, were not upheld to the same degree nor for the same duration. The EU made a positive assessment of Bosnia's general elections in October 2022. The general elections elect both the president and the parliament at both state level and entity level, so both the Federation and Republika Srpska, and also a tiny territory called the Brko district. The conclusion that the EU presented regarding these elections and the proper support from October 2022 led to Bosnia's candidate status in this December European Council meeting between heads of state and government. Despite all of Bosnia's heterogeneity, they observed the common position regarding the EU on our accession to this organization was beneficial to all Bosnian peoples, in particular the three constituent peoples, Serbs, Bosniaks, and Croats, and efforts had to be made regarding its priorities, especially the political ones, but these could be achieved during candidate status and not before. This circumvents the fact that, as I'll show afterwards, its aggregate score was lower than Georgia's on all dimensions. Now, I don't think we should ignore the role of geography in policymaking, the so-called geopolitics. When looking at a map of Europe, one notices that Bosnia, as my colleague showed, besides Kosovo, is surrounded by veteran candidates and even some EU member states, like Croatia and Slovenia. Such is also the case with Moldova, wedged between a belligerent Ukraine, that is currently in the spotlight of international affairs, and Romania, another EU member state. Despite having issued a formal request at the very same day as Georgia, Moldova's enlargement process is more closely tied with Ukraine, where again political polarization, or lack thereof, plays a role. Now, it's not that political instability does not exist in Moldova and Ukraine, or that they are homogeneous societies. Far from it. But the EU question is very clear-cut from 2022 onwards, not only among its populace, but also the political and economic elites. One can say the same about Georgia, even with the recent March pro-EU protests. Given the
Pedro, sorry to interrupt you, but you have just a couple of more minutes, okay? Like 5 minutes.
Of course, no
to
problem.
conclusion. Thank you.
Yes, no problem. Given the fractures within Georgia between the president and the prime minister, and even within the government and its relation with former political figures, Russia's economic weight in Georgia is also much more prevalent than it is in either Ukraine or Moldova, especially after the thousands of Russian escapees from the mobilization efforts to the war. We may also not ignore geography-wise that Georgia, despite sharing a border with Russia and having two separate quasi-states within its territory, Abkhazia and South Ossetia, is not perceived with as much urgency as Moldova's Transnistria, an older and more dormant frozen conflict. Not only that, Georgia shares a border with only one EU candidate, Turkey. Otherwise, it can only turn to Armenia and Azerbaijan, which are not interested in EU accession, a belligerent Russia, and an increasingly militarized Black Sea. Nevertheless, there is yet a slight hope. The EU's High Representative, Josep Borrell, visited Georgia last week, and the country continues to be mentioned and equated in the EU's rhetoric and practical efforts regarding its enlargement process. Due to its role in European affairs, I chose to isolate one quote from from German Chancellor Olaf Scholz in his so-called Prague speech, showing a maximalist approach to EU enlargement, speaking of a Europe of 36, that is, including the 6 Western Balkan states and the 3 willing post-Soviet states. Now, this is not a table which I previously mentioned. I'll use the color scheme since I found it easier to illustrate how the EU perceives each candidate in its progress reports and analytical reports, in what dimension, in what cluster do they fare better, and so forth. As you may see, the scores decrease from left to right. I am aware that this is not a complete innovation. When I started writing this paper in August 2022, I didn't find any table, any methodology alike. Since then, think tank European Stability Initiative started to use a similar metric with both color schemes and point-based rankings. But again, the methodology is slightly different, and the points derived from specific sentences that from uniform language that the EU uses in every one of its reports. It is, as I hope, as objective as it can be. So that is it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Pedro. Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. And so we are going to follow the program. And now we are going to pass to another perspective, please, with here power in humanitarian interventions, a comparison of pre and post-Kosovo cases. Ekrem Ok, and you first, and then Professor you alone. Okay, but thank you, Professor. Also, I don't know if you want to say something. So you trust absolutely in. Okay, thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Yes. Hello, good afternoon. I am Ekrem from the CESRAN International and Ağrı University. I will present you today air power implementary intervention, a comparison of the pre and post-Kosovo case, our case with Dr. Ozgur Tufekci. And first of all, I would like to thank you, organization committee of this Congress, for providing us such a good platform. And let's start our presentation. One of the leading controversies of the last decade is question of what is to be done when a state is unwilling or unable to halt a humanitarian crisis within its territory, or what if a country creates such a crisis? If we explain with a metaphor, should we intervene if our neighbor's husband beat up his wife, or a criminal is trying to get in and kill our neighbor's children? Should we intervene? And humanitarian intervention emerged from this concern and implies that a humanitarian intervention by a third-party country or a group of countries or international organization in an internal affair of a country with or without target state's consent. Although some problems in practice and some states' efforts to follow their interests under the umbrella of the humanitarian intervention lead some erosion in reliability of the concept and justification of intervention, it is still clear powerful states who have potential to intervene are still called to intervene in most human rights violations. But states don't have standardized set of criteria to determine whether or not to engage in interventions. A state may prefer to intervene in one state with human rights violation, and this state preferring not to intervene another state with similar situation. Following the end of the Cold War, humanitarian intervention gained increased attention. Academics, states, and international organizations began to breach the wall of the non-interference and attach less importance to concept of national sovereignty. After the Cold War, there was increasing willingness amongst the states, non-governmental organizations to address human rights violation. Interventions mainly relied on manpower and were not just limited to providing security. Interveners undertook a wide range of tasks, including building roads and civic centers, holding elections, vaccinating children, and even picking up rubbish. And question arises, does this trend still alive, or has there been a new transformation in application method of the humanitarian intervention? So if there is, how has humanitarian intervention changed over time, especially regarding to intervention methods? And how has the use of air power affect the scope of humanitarian intervention? And what kind of methods might be used in the future humanitarian interventions? Limit and our methodologies. We analyze transformation in humanitarian intervention just in application method of the humanitarian intervention. In other words, it is about how humanitarian intervention are conducted in the fields. Our sample space is 1990 and 2020. We analyzed 8 cases divided into 2 groups, pre-Kosovo and post-Kosovo case. We analyzed this case in a comparative perspective analysis. The case is in these time intervals are selected according to our identified case selection criteria. Why did we compose our case selection criteria? Because there is no generally accepted humanitarian intervention criteria, but however, we can reach some common criteria from this definition. We determine 5 criteria for case selection. 4 of these criteria were based on other definition, but the last one is specific to our study. The first criterion is humanitarian emergency. It must be a humanitarian emergency in the target state. And second one is the target state must be unwilling or unable to stop humanitarian crisis. The third criterion, the intervention should be conducted through military means. And the fourth criterion is intervention must have a humanitarian dimension. The last criterion, with or without the consent of the target state. But in this criterion, we have a sub-question to case. If target state have a consent of intervention, perpetrator must be non-state actor. And this is about the state's enablers of the stop humanitarian intervention. And this is our case. Pre-Kosovo case is Iraq, Somalia, Rwanda, and East Timor. The post-Kosovo case is Kosovo, Libya, and Syria against the ISIS. I try to summarize all the data in a one table, and I'm trying to zoom. How can I zoom? I don't know. Yeah, is it? Okay. Okay, I find it. I figure it. Okay, in pre-Kosovo case, role of the land power is main method, but in post-Kosovo case, role of the land power is supporting and assisting, advising and assisting role. And the role of the air power in pre-Kosovo case is supporting the land power, but in the post-Kosovo case is the main application method. The casualties and loss is decreasing in post-Kosovo case, but in pre-Kosovo case, the interveners have casualties and lost. In post-Kosovo case, most of the losses is about the vehicles, military vehicles. And the scope of the intervention is pre-Kosovo case is mostly wide range of task, but in the post-Kosovo case is just about the providing security and assistance to fighting force in the ground. For example, in Iraq, scope of the intervention is airdrops containing food and relief supplies, proclaiming no-fly zone and secure that area, and after the intervention, stand by in Turkey for a while to act in case of further attack from the Saddam government. In Somalia, scope of the intervention is drilling well, making roads, vaccinating children, helping even farmers. In Rwanda, first of all, stop the civil war, after stop the genocide, and lastly, handle the consequences of the genocide. In East Timor, repairing roads, reconditioning civic centers, bridge, airport, sewer system, even picking up the rubbish. In post-Kosovo case, after the Kosovo, the main scope of the intervention and aim of the intervention is stop violence and provide security. Even in Syria, in the last case, the aim of the air power is assisting the fighting force on the ground. So what this data tell us? The cases show us the transformation in the main application method of the humanitarian intervention from air power to manpower. In pro-Kosovo case, manpower, in other words, ground force, were deployed extensively and air power was exercised for the protection of this group on the field. In post-Kosovo case, air power has become primary method of conducting humanitarian interventions. In pre-Kosovo case, interveners undertook a wide range of tasks, including building roads, holding elections, building civic center, and vaccinating children. But in post-Kosovo case, only military contact limited to airstrikes. What air power offer the states? Why they choose the air power? Because powerful countries that can intervene prefer to avoid ground war. Instead, they seek a lower risk approach. They want involvement without taking too much risk. They engage in conflict by air and want somebody to do ground job for them, and air power exactly offer them what they want. Air power offers also Western policymakers low risk and, in some situations, risk-free involvement of military conflict, protecting them also from domestic political criticism. Moreover, air power has some drawbacks. First of all, vulnerability to adverse natural conditions, for example, in such as terrain and the bad weather. Secondly, the potential for the collateral damage. For example, in Kosovo case, we can see 500 civilian dead in these air strikes. And the third drawback is the requirement of the ground force, because air power alone is not adequate to secure and maintain the control over the territory. In other words, air power cannot hold the territory. In future interventions, for the first two drawbacks, new technologies may offer a solution. Advancement in military technologies such as drones, unmanned air vehicles, and remote controlled weapon systems seems the solution for the first two drawbacks. For the third drawbacks, collaboration, local ground force, for example, opposition force, military contractors, private military corporation may offer a solution. And states who thinks to be active in humanitarian intervention operation should strengthen their air power capacity. Thank you for listening. If you have a question, I'm glad to be here in a Q&A session. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ekrem. And thank you for respecting the time to do the presentation.
Yes,
so now perhaps we can talk all together in the debate in the Q&A part. I guess you all are very interested, especially this side of the audience and at home also. I just want to say that all of those topics that you brought us all today, they are really, really interesting. And we should try to answer the question of the panel session, Eastern Europe at the center again. So I think after the Q&A part, we could try to answer to that. I don't know if we have any question on the online audience. Please feel free to unmute yourself and share your thoughts, or we can start here. So who wants, oh, I was thinking about you. So I'm going to pass the mic to present yourself. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks very much for the presentations. I am Marco Marsili from Ca' Foscari University of Venice, and I chaired a panel yesterday, the last panel yesterday afternoon. So this is my first CESRAN's conference, and this occasion marks my anniversary. It amounts to, as I said yesterday, to a marriage, more or less. So all the topics were very interesting within this panel. And I would like to start, I have some questions for all the presenters, but I will start with the last one from Ekrem. It was very, very interesting. Also like Paulo and Pedro's presentations, but afterwards we will address yours. And I think that all the three presentations have a fil rouge. I mean, a thread that links them, because of course it's the topic of the panel. It's about the Balkans more or less. So starting for your presentations, for your presentation that triggered, like the other presentation, triggered many questions. I'd like to ask you whether, I mean, under which situations, under which you can consider an intervention, a military intervention, a humanitarian one. Because in 1998, when the NATO bombed Belgrade, it was first an illegal bombing because the intervention did not have the coverage by the Security Council of the United Nations that could never authorize a bombing of a city that was not, Belgrade did not constitute a military objective. Of course, it was not a military target because it was a capital city. And the death toll of that bombing, according to the ruling by the International Criminal Court, was 500 civilians dead in the bombings. But the ruling said that this is an average, it's normal in conflicts. So it's normal. It's normal for the bombing of the NATO in Belgrade. It's not normal in Ukraine, in other countries. So just see the differences. So how it was presented to the public opinion, the intervention? It was officially presented as a humanitarian intervention according to the customary international law. So there is no customary international law that allowed to bomb civilians with under excusation of a humanitarian intervention. So my question is, do you think that we can just justify a military intervention, bombing of civilians, of cities, non-military targets, under the excusation of humanitarian security, humanitarian intervention? And just to close up, to give you a hint, a suggestion for your investigation, there is a concept of human security that is under development by the NATO STO. I tell you because I'm member of the NATO team that is developing this concept of human security that will be in future years approved by the NATO. That is more or less NATO wants to have a concept of human security that is not the same of the United Nations, of course, because the United Nations is not a military organization, while on the other side, the NATO is a political and a military organization. So I've debated intensively during the meetings of our international research group on this topic, because I wanted to avoid that under the accusation of human security, we authorize, we support some kind of military intervention, like we assisted during the bombing of the former Yugoslavia. So this is the question for you, and afterwards I will come out with question for the other panelists. Do you use that one? Okay, thanks.
Waiting for the question for other panelists.
Thank you. I mean, this is a continuation of the same conversation, more or less. Okay, I'm Professor Nargis Canefe from Toronto, Canada, York University. At the very end of your presentation, which I found very valuable in terms of the clustering of different types of interventions, you suggested that one of the ways forward would be connecting with private contractors and or military groupings. Now, in international criminal law, it's becoming more and more obvious that the private contractors in Iraq and in other places have been really committing crimes against the civilian population. So I'm just wondering what kind of filtering or what kind of mechanism we envisage that will be employed in terms of who to choose to contact and then to somehow, I don't know, like this is mind-boggling to me in terms of international criminal law. Thank you.
So now, okay, thank you for questions. I would like to start with the last one. You asked me the military contractors, some countries making collaboration with this military contractions and local groups. I think this is the case from the last two cases, Libya and the Syrian intervention. In Libya, intervener collaborate with the opposition force, and the Syria RPG and some other local force they collaborated with. The question, yes, this kind of collaboration may have a danger, but interveners doesn't care this danger because they just want to get rid of the pressure on their inside, because some international pressures on them stop this violence, help this innocents, and they don't want to risk their children, soldiers' life. The best solution is the bombing from air and lets them ground force do the ground job for them. They just care this, and yes, this kind of commitment. They try to do this commitment. Yes, high risk. No, their solution is this. The air power actually offered them a best solution for this. But in the first question, I'm starting with the last. Killing 500 people in Kosovo. Yes, it is dangerous, but they didn't lose their soldiers. Yeah, because they care just their soldiers' life, and they don't care the innocent people or the collateral damage, because when their soldiers die, domestic critic arise. But in domestic policy, no one asking, no one criticizing them. Why did you kill this 500 people? They just ask, why did you kill our soldiers? In the also The second question is we have research, we have a study about this, the effect of the case on the reliability of humanitarian interventions. We saw this study after the Iraq interventions, the reliability of the humanitarian intervention dropped because countries and states abuse the humanitarian intervention to follow their interest. The last one is Libya, the very huge damage to the reliability of humanitarian intervention, and the current situation of the humanitarian intervention is very bad. That's why in Syria, Russia and China block the humanitarian intervention offers by saying in Libya examples, they veto in resembling by Libya interventions. They are saying you don't want to save the innocent, you don't want to make a humanitarian intervention, you just want to take over the government. That's why humanitarian intervention reliability is drop. And the criterion, how can I say intervention of humanitarian? It is very hard situation, and you know, in social science, it is hard to find standards and everyone accept as definition. That's why we compose our criterion. We have 5 criterion to choose a case, a humanitarian. The first one is it must be a humanitarian emergency. Second one, the target states unable or unwilling to stop this violence. The third one, intervention must be conducted by military means. And the fourth one, intervention must have humanitarian dimension. We just, if we have a little humanitarian dimension, we take it our case, because in every case you can find egoistic aim. You can find every humanitarian intervention, but if we not accept the case with egoistic aims, we cannot find any case to analyze or study. Thank you. Thank you both.
Hi, everybody. This is Ozgur Tufekci. I want to ask a question to Ainur Almukhambetova. Ainur, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
You presented a paper about the students' international mobility in Kazakhstan. I wonder that, you know, what kind of projection you would put together regarding the change in that international mobility in Kazakhstan. You know, I mean, have you put any thinking about the future possibilities? Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a very interesting question. Actually, our project is aimed at understanding the mobility patterns of the students in our region. And we are coming to conclusion that this situation actually presents a great opportunity for Kazakhstan to retain all of the students who previously used to study in Russia, especially taking into account the higher education opportunities which are available in Kazakhstan. And I mentioned in my presentation that the Kazakhstani government is currently implementing a lot of measures to attract the talented students who previously used to study in Russia, and also other students who from the region, from other Central Asian countries, who used to go to Russian universities. So as far as I know, there are already 4 or 5 university campuses, branch campuses opening in Kazakhstan, and also, you know, increase of scholarships for international students. So currently, Kazakhstan is kind of, you know, striving to become a local core in Central Asia, using this opportunity. So again, it's both an opportunity and also challenge, because for the students, for higher education institutions, for faculty members, there are also issues like, raising the quality of teaching, introducing new programs which are interesting for higher education students from other countries. Hope I was able to answer your question.
Thanks very much. So this last question is for Paulo and Pedro, because more or less their topic is the enlargement, the Eastern enlargement of the European Union. It is a hot topic, just to say. Why is it's a hot topic? And my final question would be why? Which are the reasons for supporting the Eastern enlargement of the European Union? This is the final question. But before, some consideration about the opportunity of going ahead with the enlargement of the European Union. I remember that in 2006, when the Spanish politician Javier Solana was the vice president and high representative for the external policy, that is a kind of foreign ministry of the European Union, he released a pamphlet with the guidelines of his mandate, and on the first page was written, Europe was never so secure and safe. Okay, it was not a prophecy because immediately after started the first jihadist bombing in Madrid. And afterwards, we assisted a wave of jihadist attacks all over Europe. All these people were living in Europe. Nobody came from outside, all European citizens, just to say. So it was not so safe and security Europe. And what happened? We assisted to the Russian-Georgian war in 2008. Russian troops arrived at a dozen kilometers from Tbilisi, the capital city of Georgia. So why? Under excusation, of course, to protect the Russian nationals that live in the entities, the territories of Abkhazia and South Ossetia. But which was the real reason? The same reason why it's not so wise to think about a NATO and European Union enlargement towards East. European Union and NATO, why? Because they go jointly, because all the members of the European Union are under the protection of the NATO, that is the United States, just to say, okay? So we do not have our defense and security ownership. We are always depend on the Americans and so on. That's why we have to follow them when we do this kind of humanitarian interventions, like in Yugoslavia or in Afghanistan. So that's why I think that we should try to find out a European way and a European military independence to grant security and so on. Because the European Union so far was not able to prevent or to solve any of the conflicts that arose at its borders. So Yugoslavia was completely inefficient, the European Union, because at the end we assisted to the bombing of the NATO, intervention of the NATO, that it's not European Union. Cyprus is occupied by the organizers, by the Turkish. I'm joking, but it's occupied, and the Northern Republic of Cyprus was established in 1974, almost 40 years ago, and is still occupied, and Cyprus is a member of the European Union. But after 40 years, no, I'm joking, No, it's not occupied. No, it's not my position, but it's the position of the international community, of the European Commission, and of the European Parliament. So it's not me speaking, of course. I'm just reporting. So I'm citing, and so now just to say that the European Union was not able to solve the problem of Cyprus, neither to prevent or to solve the conflict that arose in Yugoslavia at the time, neither was able to prevent or to solve the conflict between, in 2008, Georgia and Russia, and Ukraine, just to close up. And so, do you think that would be a good idea to bring Georgia inside the European Union now with the conflict in Ukraine? Because to the Russian leadership, the accession of Georgia and Ukraine to the European Union, to the Western Front, European Union and the NATO, would be a catastrophe even worse than the dissolution of the Soviet Union. There are many caveats along the years. They said, no, this is the limit of the enlargement of the European Union and the NATO. No, much closer to Moscow, no much. So, but, you know, there is a strong pressure because there are interests to erode the sphere of influence of Russia that I think they should be respected according to the Helsinki Accords of 1974 that were not binding agreement, but a political agreement. So the Eastern Bloc would have respected the influence of the United States in their home garden, that South America, of course, when the CIA could stage a coup d'etat and so on, and so overthrowing leftist governments and so on. And on the other side, the United States gave up to intervene in the Soviet Union sphere. So it should be respected. And when you think to bring into the European Union Bosnia-Herzegovina, you should think that there are a couple of problems. First, they do not fulfill with any of the core principles requested by the European Union. I mean, the judiciary is not independent from the executive power. And the media, the freedom of the media, is absolutely not respected. There are killings of journalists and politicians and judges. So, and it's very unstable, and they are not able, like Poland. Poland is a member of the European Union, but has not adopted so far the euro's currency. Why? Because they were not able to do the economic reforms that were requested by the European Union. No, I have already posed the question at the beginning, but I wanted to support why, in my opinion, it's not good to an enlargement of the European Union that would include Bosnia-Herzegovina. I finish. So there are a couple of problems like economic reforms and so on. And there is another problem, a security problem, a serious one, that it's about Kosovo and the relationship, just to say, but between Kosovo and Bosnia-Herzegovina. There are continuous clashes, ethnic clashes, and so on, between Bosniaks and the Kosovo authorities within Kosovo. And the situation sometimes inflames so much that it's very, very dangerous. So this is and that's all. Thanks very much.
Thank you. So, sorry? The question was for Pedro and both of them? You're going to pass the... Okay, so I'll pass to Pedro to a quick, and I'm so sorry because we are short in time. A quick answer, please, Pedro.
Yes, that's okay. That's okay. I also have to leave at 5:30 on the clock. So, regarding the question, why is EU enlargement a hot? Why support Eastern enlargement? Well, if I did so, it was not my intention, but I did not mean to imply in my presentation or in my paper that I am a maximalist supporter of Eastern enlargement. In fact, when the high-level statements especially state that such and such countries, places in Europe, it's a European country, part of the European family, and so forth, It is merely setting the foundations for a number of conversations which can only be at a very long term. The President of the European Council, for example, stated a few weeks ago that that Montenegro's place within the European Union should be secured by 2030, and this is by far the best, the country which is the best place for EU accession. And we are speaking of 7 years, let alone every other country and those who are also at war. Given the European Union has a much more comprehensive process of enlargement than NATO has, of course, but they are not seen in the same manner by Russia regarding the enlargement for Eastern European countries. The European Union is not antagonized in the same manner as NATO is, because there is no United States in European Union. There is no clear leadership as proven by the role that Poland, for example, has been assuming at the Ukraine war to the merits of Germany, which has started to take the role, but very slowly in comparison with Poland and the Baltic states, which have different stances towards the conflict, and which have been assuming a more prevalent role. But regarding the Eastern enlargement and the enlargement of the Balkans, it is assumed that the enlargement process via the acquis, the economic criteria, and the political criteria has such an influence in the functioning of a country that whatever results from those accessions can only be a country that is ready for accession. But again, we are speaking of the foundations. We are not speaking of short-term enlargement. That could never be the case.
Thank you, Pedro. Thank you so much. We have only 1 or 2 minutes. Paulo, can...
Regarding Russia, all I can say is that as long as Bosnia-Herzegovina is inside or within the influence of the European Union, we are using also the influence of the USA against Russia. We know that Russia, from history, is written there, from the past, is Russia plus Serbia trying to gain control of part or of Bosnia-Herzegovina in a way to destabilize West, European Union, and gain access to the warm waters. Let us not rule out that Mr. Dodik is a Serbian Bosnian that is close to Serbia, that is close to Russia. So as long as Russia is monitoring, puppeting the influence over some decisions on Bosnia, is also influencing the social security situation in there. And so if European Union is able to put the influence over Bosnia, is reducing the influence of Russia, and so trying to gain a better, stable, safe, and secure environment. This is the conclusion that I draw from this definition that was drawn from now.
So I think we will have here opportunity to exchange more views and reflections. But I would like to end this session saying that it was really interesting, and we could tell by the Q&A part and the debate that we had here more opportunity to reflect more. But anyway, and above all the panelists, thank you so much for all the research and sharing and comments and reflections. And of course, I would like to thank the committee organization of CESRAM and my professors here present, and all the auditorium or audience online. Thank you so much, and I hope we can see each other soon, especially again here in Lisbon. But well, I'm not impartial, so I'm partial. So thank you so much to you all, and of course to all. Thank you. Bye-bye.